In a cruel twist of fate that none could have predicted, the latest unfolding on the Bold and the Beautiful brings Ridge Forrester face to face with a harrowing crisis, one that threatens to shatter not just his heart, but the lives of those tethered closely to him. As the news breaks, Ridge receives a devastating call from the hospital. The voice on the other end is calm but grim, informing him that Taylor Hayes has been rushed into the emergency room. The circumstances are chilling. Taylor was found unconscious in her private office, a half-empty bottle of sleeping pills by her side. The hospital staff, upon searching her belongings, discovered Ridge's phone number listed as her emergency contact, the first name, the one she trusted above all others. Despite her esteemed career as a brilliant psychiatrist, Taylor, ironically, could not heal the wounds that festered within her own soul. It was a cruel irony, one that cut deeper because those who loved her believed her to be the pillar of strength, the one who could always find light in the darkest corners. Yet, beneath the composed facade, Taylor had been fighting a losing battle with despair. It wasn't just the slow, agonizing realization that Ridge was drifting away from her. It was the mounting evidence, day by day, moment by moment, that Ridge and Brooke were finding their way back to each other, reigniting a flame that Taylor had spent years trying to extinguish in her heart. Taylor's world crumbled silently around her. Her love for Ridge, unwavering and pure, had become her greatest burden. She watched helplessly as the man she adored grew closer once again to the woman she could never seem to surpass. Brooke Logan, the eternal rival, the one name that had haunted Taylor's romantic dreams for decades. As Ridge's affections slowly but unmistakably shifted, Taylor found herself gripped by an unrelenting fear, the fear of loss, the fear of becoming irrelevant in Ridge's life, and the fear that she would once again be left behind, a spectator to the reunion of a love she could never conquer. Eric Forrester's subtle but undeniable interference only served to deepen the abyss in which Taylor found herself sinking. Eric, driven by his own complicated loyalties and his desire to see Ridge find happiness with Brooke once and for all, had, whether intentionally or not, contributed to the chasm growing between Ridge and Taylor. Words of encouragement, sideways glances, and orchestrated moments of coincidental meetings between Ridge and Brooke had all played their part in Taylor's growing sense of isolation. Feeling trapped, betrayed by fate, and unseen by those she loved most, Taylor reached for the only solace she believed she had left, the oblivion of sleep. It was meant to be an escape, not an end. The sleeping pills were supposed to silence the relentless thoughts, to grant her a few hours of peace from the overwhelming grief and turmoil that clouded her every waking moment. But in her desperation, Taylor miscalculated. She took too many, and her body, already weary from emotional exhaustion, could not withstand the onslaught. By the time she was discovered, precious minutes had been lost, minutes that could have meant the difference between a simple rescue and a fight for her life. The hospital's emergency team worked feverishly to stabilize Taylor. They fought against the clock, administering treatments, flushing her system, and battling to pull her back from the edge. But the damage had been done. The toxic amount of medication had seeped deep into her bloodstream, affecting her brain and vital organs. For agonizing hours, Ridge paced the sterile corridors of the hospital, the weight of guilt and fear pressing down on him with suffocating force. Memories flooded his mind, their shared history, the laughter, the tears, the promises broken and remade. How had it come to this? How had he allowed the woman who had once been his anchor to fall into such despair without even noticing? When Taylor finally opened her eyes, the relief that surged through Ridge's heart was almost too much to bear. But the reunion was far from the joyous one he had imagined. The doctors delivered the grim news with clinical detachment. Taylor had survived, but her mind had not emerged unscathed. The overdose had triggered severe neurological complications. Taylor's memory was compromised, fractured in ways that might never fully heal. She recognized no one. She spoke with the innocence and confusion of a child, trapped in a mind that no longer remembered the complexities of adulthood. Ridge was devastated. Watching Taylor struggle to grasp even the simplest concepts, seeing her bewildered expressions as she failed to recognize familiar faces, ripped him apart inside. The woman who had once been his equal in every way, strong, intelligent, compassionate, was now reduced to a vulnerable, frightened version of herself. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs, for not being there when she needed him most. And yet, amidst the heartbreak, a fierce protectiveness awakened within him, a determination to be by Taylor's side, to shepherd her through this new, terrifying chapter of her life. But Ridge's heart was not a blank slate. His relationship with Brooke had been rekindling, slow but sure, a fragile bridge built from shared memories, forgiveness, and the enduring pull of a love that had survived countless trials. Now, standing at the crossroads of duty and desire, Ridge faced an impossible choice. Could he, in good conscience, continue to pursue a future with Brooke while Taylor needed him so desperately? Could he turn his back on the woman who had loved him so profoundly, now more helpless than she had ever been? Brooke, too, was caught in the storm. She loved Ridge deeply and had hoped that at long last, their love story would find its happy ending. But Brooke was not blind to the suffering before her. She saw the guilt in Ridge's eyes, the anguish that gnawed at him every moment he spent away from Taylor's bedside. Brooke knew that love, real love, was selfless. She could not, would not, chain Ridge to her side if his heart was elsewhere. Even if that elsewhere was born out of obligation and compassion rather than romantic passion. Questions hung heavy in the air. Would Ridge abandon the hope of a new beginning with Brooke to dedicate himself entirely to Taylor's care? Would proximity, shared moments of tenderness, and the vulnerability of Taylor's condition reignite old feelings, drawing Ridge back to her in ways that neither of them could resist? Or would Ridge's heart remain steadfast with Brooke, even as his sense of duty pulled him in another direction? As Ridge spent long hours at Taylor's bedside, reading to her, helping her relearn forgotten words, guiding her trembling hands through simple tasks, the bonds of their shared past stirred within him. Taylor, unaware of the magnitude of her own loss, clung to Ridge with childlike trust. In her eyes, he was safety, warmth, and the center of her fragile new world. And Ridge, torn between loyalty and love, found himself questioning the path he had thought so clear just days before. Eric watched from the sidelines, his own guilt mounting. He had believed he was acting in Ridge's best interests by nudging him toward Brooke. He had not foreseen the devastation his machinations would unleash. Now, he wondered if he had been wrong to interfere, if perhaps destiny had other plans for Ridge and Taylor, plans he had foolishly tried to derail. Meanwhile, Brooke wrestled with her own anguish. She visited Taylor, brought flowers, offered words of comfort, even though each visit felt like driving a knife deeper into her own heart. Brooke saw the way Ridge looked at Taylor now, not with the romantic passion of old, but with something just as profound: devotion, tenderness, responsibility. She knew that Ridge could never truly turn his back on Taylor, not now. And maybe, just maybe, that meant he could never fully be hers. The days stretched into weeks. Taylor's condition improved incrementally, but the doctors remained cautious. Full recovery was uncertain. Her mind might never fully return to its former state. And even if it did, the emotional scars would linger. Ridge remained by her side through it all, a constant presence, his heart heavy with love, regret, and confusion. Friends and family whispered behind closed doors, speculating on the future. Would Ridge marry Taylor again, out of a sense of duty? Would Brooke step aside gracefully, allowing Ridge the space to honor his responsibilities? Or would Ridge find a way to balance the needs of both women, carving a painful, complicated path forward that satisfied no one but attempted to honor them all? As the sun set over Los Angeles each evening, casting golden hues over the ocean, Ridge sat at Taylor's bedside, reading aloud from books she used to love but no longer remembered. He held her hand in his, steady and warm, even as uncertainty loomed large over them. And in the quiet moments between words, between breaths, Ridge wondered, was this fate's way of telling him that his journey with Taylor was not yet over? Was love about choosing happiness, or was it about choosing sacrifice? Was it possible, after all the years, all the pain, all the betrayals, that his heart still belonged not just to Brooke, but to Taylor too? In the days to come, Ridge Forrester would be forced to confront these questions with a clarity he had long avoided. Love, loyalty, and destiny were colliding in ways he could no longer ignore. The future was uncertain, the path ahead shadowed and treacherous. But one thing was clear, nothing would ever be the same again. And for Taylor, whose journey back to herself was only just beginning, the road to healing would be long and fraught with peril, but with Ridge by her side. Whether as a friend, a caretaker, or something more, she would not walk it alone. The saga of Ridge, Taylor, and Brooke was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning a new, heartbreaking chapter.